They are sabotaging Social Security, and it's our obligation to expose it. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. The Republican sabotage of Social Security is really starting to bite. This has been going on since the Reagan administration. Republicans, particularly when they control Congress, pass budgets that cut funding for Social Security. It doesn't actually cut the amount that people who are on Social Security or on Social Security disability get, but it makes it much harder. It cuts the staff of Social Security, essentially. It reduces their overall staffing, and that's one of the main reasons why right now, if you're disabled, if you become disabled, it can take up to 2 years for your claim to be processed, for you to start getting disability checks. And I realize there's some hoops to jump through, which are appropriate. You have to prove your disability. You're talking about, not working any longer and getting a government check. But it shouldn't take 2 years. And it does, in large part because the Social Security Administration has been gutted over and over and over again. This is the GOP sabotage. Republicans have hated Social Security ever since it was passed in 1935 by Franklin Roosevelt. They have absolutely hated it with a burning passion. They've tried a whole bunch of ways to shoot it down. They tried repeatedly back in the 1930s to shoot it down by claiming that it was unconstitutional, tried to take it to the Supreme Court in 1937. That was one of the cases where Justice Owen Roberts said, I'm going to change my mind and vote with Franklin Roosevelt. I mean, that was the thing. It was part of the collection of cases that stopped Roosevelt from packing the court. So the Republicans tried to stop Social Security by claiming it was unconstitutional. Then they tried to stop it by claiming that it was overreach and it was communism and it was socialism. And we heard that over and over and over again throughout the 1950s, the 40s, not so much. The 1950s, it became a big deal. The John Birch Society was all over it. The Republican Party was all over it. It's communism, it's socialism. And then when in 1967, I believe it was 67, might have been 66, when Lyndon Johnson rolled out Medicare and Medicaid, that, this was over the objections of Ronald Reagan, who had recorded this 33 LP recording talking about how, if the Medicare is the camel's nose under the tent, right? Under the edge of the tent. This is how socialism creeps into societies. This is how communism takes over countries with a national health care system. And someday, if this passes, someday you and I will be sitting on our porch telling our grandchildren about when America was free, what it was like when America was free. I mean, that was the next, because Medicare actually is an addendum to the Social Security Act. And it's administered by the Social Security Department, or whatever it's called, the Office of Social Security, or there's an official name for it out there somewhere. But in any case, so the Social Security Administration, thank you, Sean. And they tried, but instead it grew with Medicare. And so then the strategy became, as Reagan came into office in the 1980s, well, let's do two things. Two main strategies that the Republicans have been pursuing since 1981. One strategy is to gut Social Security, right? To pass budgets that reduce the budget and the number of people working in Social Security. The Trump administration offered 20,000 Social Security employees early retirement if they wanted to take it. A lot of them did. And, with no intention to replace any of them. So that was one strategy. And then the second strategy that the Republican Party rolled out in the 1980s during the Reagan administration to kill Social Security was to try to convince Americans, younger Americans, that there would be no Social Security waiting for them, that the Social Security system was inherently unable to exist over a long period of time, that it was essentially a Ponzi scheme, that, new money was being put into, it was basically a Ponzi scheme. And they've been fairly successful at this. I mean, there have been surveys and studies showing that anywhere from 30 to 45% of Americans under 50 don't think Social Security will be there for them when they reach 65 or 67, I guess it is now. Reagan raised it up to 67, and that took effect over the last couple of years. But It hasn't worked. None of it has worked so far. And this is the big question. Are they going to be able to pull this off? So, the strategy that they're pursuing now of gutting, they're still doing these two strategies. And they're still arguing that it's unconstitutional. But, the strategy of making people think that Social Security is failing and it won't be there for you, they're still doing that every single day, the Republicans. But this gutting of Social Security, there is an Inspector General's office in the Social Security Administration, just like there is in every major federal agency. And the Inspector General's office just issued this mind-boggling report. And, pointing out that, we have found, they identified, they started out and they said, okay, let's take a sample of a few people, a relatively small number of people, so we can do the deep dive. We can actually contact these people, and we can contact the people in Social Security who are dealing with them and everything else, and figure out what's going on. And let's see, if things are getting better. And it turns out things are not getting that better. They took 27,724 recipients who have not received $52 million in payments that are due them, and another 17,772 people who are eligible for about $90 million in payments that they have not been able to locate. They haven't been able to find these people. What happened to them? How did Social Security lose these people? And what they found was that, well, here, for example, we found no evidence. This is from the Inspector General. We found no evidence the Social Security Administration attempted to locate the beneficiaries or individuals in our sample who may have been eligible for these underpayments. Well, if you don't have staff, how can you have staff looking for people? This is why the National Association of Administrative Law Judges, these are administrative law judges, by the way, who make the determinations, I believe, who make the determinations in Social Security disability cases, and the National Council of Social Security Administration Field Operation Locals have declared, quote, no confidence, end quote, in Andrew Saul and David Black. These are the guys that Trump put in charge of the Social Security Department. And then Social Security Works, Alex Lawson, who's a regular on our program and has occasionally done fill-in for me on this show, great guy, out of D.C. They are lobbying Joe Biden to fire the Deputy Commissioner, Mark Warshawski, saying he is, quote, the apparent mastermind behind an ongoing regulatory war on disability beneficiaries. You recall one of the things that the Trump administration has done is said, we're not just going to reevaluate these disability claims every other year. We're going to start doing it far more frequently. And every time, of course, they reevaluate your claim, you've got to jump through all kinds of hoops. And if you neglect to or forget to or don't file the right form or don't punch the right box or whatever it may be, you lose your money. And it's not like these Republicans are sitting around saying, oh, gee, it's government money and we need to be very, very careful with this government money because we want to make sure that it gets redirected to the Pentagon or something like that. No, it's just that they hate Social Security. They hate any kind of social safety net. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, food stamps, they hate it all. They don't think that the proper role of government is to provide for the general welfare. While in the preamble to the Constitution, it says that this Constitution is created for the United States of America to provide for the general welfare. A phrase that gets repeated in Article 1, Section 8, where they talk about what Congress can appropriate money for, to provide for the general welfare of the people.